Krishna. So we are continuing with our discussion on the first chapter, just remaining the last few verses. We are on text 36. So Arjuna continues to give his reasons for not fighting, and this is a new angle he brings in. So far he brought the angle of what's in it for me, right? What's the happiness I will get, and what's the benefit? So cost analysis. So now he brings in the angle of something very different. Uh, Sin will overcome us if we slay such aggressors. Therefore, it is not proper for us to kill the sons of Dhritarashtra and our friends. What should we gain, O Krishna, husband of the goddess of fortune? And how could we be happy by killing our own kinsmen? So we can see how Arjuna is really challenging Krishna again here. The first thing he's saying, and we'll read the purport. First thing he's saying is that papam, so we'll discuss what papam means. Sin, or what sin or papam. And then he talks about, he addresses Krishna as Madhava. We'll see what Prabhupada, I think, will address that.
Not really. I mean, I think it's just, basically.
So I'm just going to explain what's going on here. He's addressing Krishna as the husband of the goddess of fortune, because as the husband of the goddess of fortune, he should be bringing in more fortune to the whole situation. And but Arjuna is saying to Krishna that despite your presence, a lot of misfortune is going to spread around here. So he's again challenging Krishna, and then he's asking, in Krishna's presence there cannot be any sin. So he's saying, but in your presence so much sin is going to spread around. So how can you tolerate that? So that's how he's kind of indirectly challenging Krishna again here.
Just wanted to add that, this is actually another great obstacle that that most spiritualists they encounter in their journey, which is this excessive attachment to morality, to mundane morality, right? And this whole absorption with what is auspicious and what is not auspicious, and what is sinful and what is pious. And of course we have to be moral, but that's not the complete picture, right? And many times if morality becomes an obstacle, and we cannot really understand transcendence because we get stuck in morality, then it can become an impediment. Otherwise, yes, morality is something that can assist us. So morality is something that can either assist us, or too much emphasis can also distract us.
Yeah, and I guess we have to really understand what true morality is, and not limit ourselves to the mundane conception of morality that we have. What is sinful or what is pious? We have certain, depending on our upbringing, depending on our culture, we have a certain understanding of what is sin and what is piety. And here that will be challenged, and one should be open to going beyond our mundane conception of piety and sin.
And actually, this is actually one of the aspects of Krishna Leela, or Krishna's pastimes, that at different points, our conception of morality is going to be challenged. And that is one of the purposes of Krishna, even speaking the Bhagavad Gita, that, it kind of forces us, it shakes us from this like state of like, oh yeah, this is such a good thing, and this is evil, and why is Krishna asking Arjuna to engage in this battle? Or how could Krishna dance with the gopis in the middle of the night, and so on and so forth. So it's something that we'll find even in our relationship with our family or our country, our society, that many times, this wall of morality will stand between us and Krishna. So we have to, at the same time, we cannot also neglect morality.
I guess we have to see morality not just from our point of view, but we have to see what is moral and what is immoral from Krishna's point of view. And that is something that in all situations of life, Krishna wants us to learn that. In our mundane conception, it may seem immoral or moral, but according to Krishna, what seems moral may be immoral, what seems immoral may be moral.
Also, I was thinking that in the aspect of Sharanagati, or surrender, there are the first two principles, which is accepting that those things that are favorable for our spiritual life, and rejecting those things that are not favorable for our spiritual life. And that becomes the new foundation of our morality.
So Delia, go ahead, you raised your hand.
I think that sometimes when people get overly attached to notions of mundane morality, it's the ego once again trying to take control of our spiritual development by thinking that the actions that we take or don't take will progress us instead of basing it on our relationship with Krishna.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. And this, this false ego also projects that I'm such a good person, right? Or that I'm so truthful, or I always uphold, I'm a self-righteous person. So in that way, so the ego, yes, definitely the ego.
Yeah, Mataji, by morality, do you mean dharma or right action? Is that what you meant by morality there?
Morality, yeah, what is right and what is wrong. Moral, that's what morality means. But ultimately, morality means, or even dharma means what is the desire of Krishna, what are the laws or instructions given by Krishna, and how to act in a particular situation.
So I guess you use the word dharma, right? So dharma has so many different levels of meaning. So here morality means dharma at the level of the body, right? Dharma at the level of the society, right? So we have certain codes of conduct that we engage in based on, for example, a practical example would be, well, there is this story, of in Srimad Bhagavatam of these brahmanas who are very attached to their conception of being a brahmana, which is basically on the bodily platform. And Krishna, he was in the village, and so he sent his friends and told his friends that we are very hungry, go and beg from these brahmanas. And so when the brahmanas saw these boys coming to beg from them, they got really, really upset. And they said that, we haven't completed our rituals yet, and our worship is not completed yet. And that food is actually meant for this yajna, and it's not, we cannot give it to you, right? And so, and then Krishna tells the same friends to go to the wives of the brahmanas and say, go and beg from them. Now, if the wives of the brahmanas were not exactly like trained up in these brahmanical rituals and auspicious activities, but as soon as they found out that Krishna was hungry, they couldn't care less. And they actually broke off, like their husbands actually tried to restrain them from going, but then nothing could stop. And
they broke the normal codes of morality by leaving their family, leaving their husbands, and they ran off to the forest with all that food. And in one sense, they broke the morality, but in one sense, they satisfied the highest morality by satisfying Krishna. So later on, the Brahmanas recognized their fault, and they fall at the feet of their wives and say, you are our gurus, actually, because you really taught us what is the highest morality.
So like that, we can be attached to so many different conceptions that I am a this or I'm a that. And so based on that identity, these are my duties. Does that help, Pratibha?
Yes, Mataji, thank you.
यद्यपेन एतेन पश्यन्ति लोभोपहत चेतसा कुलक्षय कृतं दोषं मित्रद्रोहे च पातकम् कथं न ज्ञेयमस्माभिः पापादस्मान् निवर्तितुं कुलक्षय कृतं दोषं प्रपश्यद्भिर्जनार्दन. O Janardana, although these men, their hearts overtaken by greed, see no fault in killing one's family or quarreling with friends, why should we, who can see the crime in destroying a family, engage in these acts of sin? So the next argument is destroying the family that Arjuna presents. And
yeah, Hare Krishna Vijay, can you send us to the breakout room? They are giving some presentation there.
okay. Okay. With the destruction of the dynasty, the eternal family tradition is vanquished, and thus the rest of the family becomes involved in religion. So he's kind of laying the foundation. Arjuna is laying the foundation. Somebody may ask, what's wrong with the family getting destroyed? Because in a war or a battle, families will be destroyed. So what's wrong with that? So then he explains the cause behind it is that with the destruction of the dynasty, the family traditions are vanquished. And when the family traditions are vanquished, then he's referring to the religious traditions. So the family becomes religious. Adharmadapi bhavat Krishna pradushyanti kula striya stri sudushta shuvarshneya jayate varna sankara.
When irreligion is prominent in the family, O Krishna, the women of the family become polluted, and from the degradation of womanhood, O descendant of Vrishni, comes unwanted progeny. So this is actually a very strong aspect also of the Vedic paradigm, which is the protection of women, children, and elderly people, and cows, and the brahmanas. So these are the people who actually contribute in a very significant way to society. So women, when they are taken care of and when they are respected and they're honored and not exploited, then it is described that in that society or in that civilization, the goddess of fortune herself becomes very pleased and showers all her blessings. And so it's and so Arjuna is rightfully worried about that, because in order for women to be honored, through history, we see that whenever one king or ruler attacks another kingdom, then they would violate the women, right? And even in modern society, we see that even though we are, in some ways, we talk about equality and we talk about freedom and so on and so forth, but women still have a lot of struggles just trying to maintain their dignity sometimes, or maintaining their self-respect. And so Arjuna is concerned that when this happens, then there will be these unscrupulous men who are going to exploit or take advantage of women. And from that, what happens is then the children that come out of such connections, they're not properly taken care of, and they're not provided the proper, in Sanskrit, what's described as samskaras, or proper upbringing or impressions. And so when children are not taken care of, then they are actually the future of any society. And so naturally, what happens is that when these children grow up, they also then propagate the same mood of exploitation and violating women.
Yeah, we can see that in today's day and age, when children, they grow up in broken families, or with their addictions or different problems in the family. Such children, when they grow up, they also engage in similar activities, and then the cycle continues. So that's what Krishna is talking about, unwanted progeny, which means that they are they're not brought up properly, without the proper training and traditions. Shankaro narakaya eva kulagnanam kulasya patanti pitaro yesham lupta pindodaka kriya. So he says, Arjuna is saying, an increase of unwanted population certainly causes hellish life both for the family and for those who destroy the family tradition. The ancestors of such corrupt families fall down because the performances for offering them food and water are entirely stopped.
I was just thinking, this is a thought I had, that, this was actually the glory of the ancient Vedic culture, where it wasn't just that the elderly were taken care of, but even the dead were taken care of.
Right.
That, like a society which is sort of based simply on talking about the rights of each person, leads to a lot of self-centeredness and also a lot of conflict. But a society which focuses on obligations and duties, right, that it is one's duty to respect, it's one's duty to take care of one's elders and one's children and one's wife and parents and the cow and Mother Earth and all of these things, right, the brahmanas. Then what happens is that in such a society, the vulnerable are actually given their due protection. And as a result of that, these family traditions can continue, right? All kinds of family traditions can continue.
It's like having fruit-giving trees in your backyard, and then we only talk about my right because this tree is on my land. I have a right to its fruits, but nobody talks about the duty of watering the tree. And in modern society, that's something become like that. Rights are like the fruits, and duties are like the watering of the tree, but which nobody is interested in.
That's very nice. I think we should pause here and see if there's any thoughts on that, because we definitely see that in today's times that these are the people, like having elders, for example, the importance of having elders in any society, right? It is described that one of the things we lack now is like, wise grandmothers and wise elders who can guide and who can provide that protection to the rest of society. In the same way, the brahmanas are teachers who have spent their whole life dedicated to spiritual growth, and so they have a lot of wisdom to offer to society. Same way with women and children who need so much nourishment as they are growing up, and so much love and care. I remember we were invited by the local high school here to come and do some meditation workshops, and we had gone there, and there was this one girl who was so moved by the experience, and she kept coming to us and saying, "You guys are going to be here again next week, right?" And yeah, we said, yeah, we plan to come here every week. And so then the teacher, she explained that the reason why she was asking was because in her entire life, she had never had like a stable place. Whoever she took shelter of, they abandoned her basically. So she was like moving from one relative to the next, and they would all sort of like, so she had this great fear within her heart, and she was so young. So the point is that, when it's such a great responsibility on the part of the entire society to be able to provide this kind of care.
I mean, just like we protect something that is valuable, right? If we have some money with us, then we immediately put it in the bank because we want the money to be protected. And because we value, just like if you have a house, then the house is protected by having a title insurance, so that if anybody tries to claim on the property, then the title insurance will take care of it. So similarly, what is valuable in the society is taken utmost care. And then women, children, elderly, brahmanas, these are the most valuable elements of the society. And in the Vedic culture, the whole society was designed to take utmost care. And most importantly, because this is what Krishna wants, because the brahmanas, cows, these are most dear to Krishna. So when those are protected, then the society will flourish because Krishna is happy.
By the evil deeds of those, and then we'll pause for some reflection. By the evil deeds of those who destroy the family tradition and thus give rise to unwanted children, all kinds of community projects and family welfare activities are devastated. O Krishna, maintainer of the people, I have heard by disciplic succession that those whose family traditions are destroyed dwell always in hell.
So here, Arjuna is making the point that it's not just me who's thinking like that. He brings in the disciplic succession. And this is an important point, that when we want to make any kind of logical point from the Vedas, then it has to be backed by the Shastra, the scriptures, also backed by what the great teachers are saying. So he said, I've heard by disciplic succession, so you cannot argue against me. These are not just my thoughts, but this is what I've heard. And this is an important point. When we are saying something, any conclusion, then it must be backed by disciplic succession. And that's what Prabhupada has brought this Bhagavad Gita as it is, that he's presenting. He says that my only contribution here is that I'm presenting the conclusions presented by the teachers in the disciplic succession. And that way we can keep the sanctity of this knowledge as if you're directly listening from Krishna.
I think this is the alas, how strange it is that we are preparing to commit greatly sinful acts. Driven by the desire to enjoy royal happiness, we are intent on killing our own kinsmen. So we stop here, I think, right?
There are two more verses, then we just end the whole chapter. So finally, he's kind of summarizing it, that we are about to commit greatly sinful acts, and it's primarily driven by desire to enjoy royal happiness. And Arjuna's main grief is that we are going to kill our own kinsmen. I mean, you can see how that's what his main concern, killing his own kinsmen. Especially his grandfather and teacher is really concerned about them. Better for me if the sons of Dhritarashtra, weapons in hand, were to kill me unarmed and unresisting on the battlefield. So he said, okay, Krishna says that, okay, if you don't fight, then they may come and still kill you. So Arjuna says, well, that's okay for me. I'm not going to fight, and even if they see me unarmed and they come and kill me, that is perfectly fine for me because it's not something that I'm willing to do, even if they violate the principles of a Kshatriya. So this is the last verse. Evam muktarjuna sankhe ratopasta upavishat vistrijya sansaram chapam shoka samvigna manasaha. Sanjaya said, Arjuna, having thus spoken on the battlefield, cast aside his bow and arrows and sat down on the chariot, his mind overwhelmed with grief. And this is very significant because Arjuna took a vow that he will never put aside his bow and arrow, and anybody who told him to do so, he will kill that person. So Arjuna had so much pride in his fighting ability, but here we can see that he's completely lost the game, and he actually, out of grief, he puts aside his bow and arrows.
You can read this purport. While observing the situation of his enemy, Arjuna stood up on the chariot, but he was so afflicted with lamentation that he sat down again, setting aside his bow and arrows. Such a kind and soft-hearted person in the devotional service of the Lord is fit to receive self-knowledge. It's kind of interesting, right? My Prabhupada ends with.
I can bring the questions. And
Can we first discuss and then we can bring the questions?
Yeah, just 1 second. Okay, so let's hear from you guys. How do we deal with, okay, is there anything before that? Okay, so Delia's question is, how do we deal with others trying to impose their notions of morality on us?
Especially if we encounter any like legalistic religious people. That's hard because they justify it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it depends on the situation, who's the person.
Yeah, but in general, I think this will happen that sometimes our family, our society, even, like you're saying, even some religious people might try to, so one of the things that can really help is if we can just simply, when we are situated on a firm platform, then it's not hopefully going to disturb us, and we can just hear it, and depending on who the person is, it may be a response of simply a smile, or if there is some opening, maybe some room for some discussion. But in general, we find that people who are very stuck in that place, it is best to just, because another thing that Krishna also says in the Bhagavad Gita, which is actually a very important thing for us to learn, is that we should not agitate the minds of those that are following a certain path. So, people who are actually walking down the path of morality, actually, it's a good thing. It's good that they're attached to that. And so if they're not ready to move up, to a higher level of understanding, then it is actually a good idea for us to encourage them on their path. So sometimes when we meet such people who may be very attached to the idea of heaven, or maybe some other, pious kind of a life, then we appreciate them. And we say, this is so wonderful that you have such a good heart, that you want to help others, or you want to live a life of, pious work, or, moral life, or whatever. And just leave it at that, because that's a better way than to try to prove to them that there is, if they're not ready, then our telling them that will just simply discourage them, in their quest, or in their journey, right?
Yeah, I guess I'm trying to understand, maybe without being challenging to them. That's the key. They should not be challenged. Rather, we can understand what their concept of morality is, and ask any pertinent questions, and just leave it at that and encourage them. And not really get into an argument or debate what is really moral.
I mean, like, one thing that can happen sometimes is, like, in India, and I'm sure it can happen outside also. In India, there's a huge, emphasis that simply worshiping your parents is like the perfection of life, right? You just worship your parents and that's it, and so, when sometimes when you see that, you're actually trying to live a life of dedication to the Supreme Lord, there might be some sacrifices that might be involved in that, and that might create some feeling that no, you should just, at the expense of your spiritual life, this is all you're supposed to do. Just an example. So in that case, one has to be very, very tactful, right? And one has to be very soft and compassionate, and not be confrontational, and accept that, yes, just like Krishna says that too, right? It's my duty
Hmm.
to take care of you. And at the same time, in the Bhagavatam, it is described that one should say yes, 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 but one should do, at the same time, one should continue on one's spiritual life. One should not get confused that that one's real duty is actually something else.
And morality is sometimes often misunderstood as being compartmentalized. And morality is a very fluid act of action. Morality is very active. And depending on the time, place, situation, the context, there's a different definition of morality. So one should be always aware, even as practicing devotees, we should not also try to get boxed in that, okay, this is the highest morality and that is lower morality.
I think that's when you need the association of those that are senior,
Yeah.
and one can consult that what is a proper approach and what is a proper way to behave in such a situation. I mean, we find that even after so many years of practicing Krishna consciousness, we continuously need guidance. There's never a point in our spiritual life where we feel that, we can just figure it, because it's like, even though you know the philosophy, but when you're in a certain situation, you still need, someone who's more experienced and who's more advanced, who can sort of help us and guide us as to what should be the next step, or how one should respond in such a situation.
Yes, morality is not practiced or understood in vacuum. Morality is always in relation to somebody, and along with morality, the more important thing is the behavior, which is Vaishnava Sadachar. How should a devotee behave? And that should always be in the forefront of our action, our speech, how we deal with people, and ultimately always acting for the pleasure of Krishna. Sometimes we may have to speak, sometimes we don't have to speak, and or correct somebody. So
I don't know, Delia, I don't know, we kind of took it. Is that kind of where you were going with this, or any further thoughts?
Yeah, especially the part about like judging whether what they're saying is correct or not, and how much to let it influence you. But I think the thing about consulting your superiors and getting guidance is really helpful there too. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And, sometimes these are, it is described that one's greatness can be tested by how well one can handle provocative situation. And so sometimes families, friends, they may provoke us, and they may question our spiritual growth or advancement, or even our path. And so we have to be situated on firm, strong grounds, and two, not become fanatical as a result of that, but always be in a compassionate mood to encourage others.
the best is to act in humility when we are confronted with any kind of challenging situation. The best option is humility. That always dismantles anybody.
It's happened to us so many times, like when we are on the mall or different places, and we've had people come up to us and say that, based on our practices, we are going to hell, or, this, that, whatever. And so, we just kind of, if we respond with like just appreciation, then it always disarms, and it sort of changes the tone of the conversation. That it's so wonderful, that you have such strong faith, and you have this dedication, and so that's great. And
even if you go to hell, you are there to rescue us.
So, anybody else?
And then Tapas had a couple of points.
Okay.
Society should be obliged to take care of the section of who provide selfless service, like women, elders, brahmanas. That is true. That's how the whole Vedic system is designed, always giving protection. Who are the most important members? When it comes to dharma, is it not always black and white? For all those gray areas, keep seeking his guidance.
Very nice,
Yes.
Pratibha. Exactly right. Exactly right.
Any other thoughts or comments?
Please speak up. Yeah, go ahead.
That last purport where Prabhupada is saying that Krishna is kind-hearted, and such a kind-hearted person will certainly, I forget the exact wording, but progress or get a good response. And that still confuses me. Well, because like on the one hand, it's saying he's kind-hearted, but then on the other hand, the chapter is kind of a criticism of his confusion. But then I was thinking about it a little bit further, and I thought, it's kind of praising the fact that he's even having this conflict to begin with, because if he weren't kind-hearted, he would just be like, yeah, let's just go and kill them all and whatever. So it's not that he, yeah, exactly, that even having these doubts is coming from a pure-hearted place, even if it's misguided, and that's a good thing ultimately.
Yeah, and Arjuna, you're absolutely right. And Arjuna did one part right, which was he was concerned about the welfare of so many things. So he was thinking in one sense, he was thinking in the mode of goodness. What will happen to the children? What will happen to the elderly? What will happen to the society? What will happen to the traditions in the society? What will happen to the ancestors? What will happen to the whole dynasty? So he was thinking about so many people who were there on the battlefield. But his only mistake until this point is that he thinks he knows what he's doing, and he's not willing to ask Krishna that, okay, is this thinking correct? Am I on the right path here? Is my thinking correct? And he will do that later on in the second chapter. But so far, and that's why he's not able to find the answer, despite his thinking in the right way, despite his having a soft-hearted nature, he feels more and more entangled in his own thoughts, and then feels more and more depressed. He's not able to come out of it. So, yeah.
I think it's telling that Krishna doesn't speak at all in the first chapter. That supports what you're saying.
Yeah, he doesn't speak. He lets Arjuna actually went out. It's like everything that he had on his chest.
And it also shows that with all our logic and with all our intelligence and with all our strength, we cannot really figure it out. You know, and I think even as even as practicing devotees, we have this tendency that we think that we know, right, and that we can figure this out, and I got it, right? But
this person is right, this person is wrong.
Right.
I guess the conditioned nature is very quick to jump to judgment. That's the nature of the conditioned soul. So I guess that's something that we can always correct. That there's no need to. Krishna is the ultimate judge, and he sees everything in a much broader light than we can see.
Yeah, for sure. Also,
Yeah,
go ahead.
Yeah, sometimes you said we are so quick to judge, but until and unless you judge, you don't know whose advice you can take and whose advice you should, just keep it at bay. So you have to make that discrimination wherein, this person I can listen to, this person I don't really need to listen to, because, so there is somewhere judgment involved, right?
Absolutely.
In that situation.
Absolutely right. And that judgment, it's actually discrimination. That is extremely important. And in our spiritual life, if we can have some guide or mentor who can help us, and in our own life, both of us, we find that we have such guides and mentors who we go to for whenever we are making any change or any decision or anything that we feel that we're stuck in, we take guidance, and that guidance has always helped us. So that discrimination is required, that we don't go to just anybody. And we don't, and even within the spiritual circle, we stay, and we continue to work like an intern, right? You continue to work under somebody and then continue to receive their guidance and mercy. So that is very valuable.
There's a difference between judgment and assessing somebody who I should listen to or not. Judgment is more when we try to judge the character or the actions of somebody. Assessing who should I go to, and that discrimination is always in the mode of goodness. That's always promoted. So
in fact, in Nectar of Instruction, that is described that is actually very necessary to know who to go to.
Okay, anybody else?
Daryl, Ashley, Eric, Amrita, Shweta.
Yeah, we haven't heard from.
Yeah.
So I have a question. When it comes to say like there's a truth that you need to share with somebody, or that you feel like you need to share that may better someone's life or may prevent them from being harmed, but it goes against what they believe, and it's also not something that they may they're ready to receive. Do we still respond in that same way that you were explaining, like just giving them this peace and love? Like, for instance, like someone who's not eating healthy, or like like right now we got a situation going on in the world where it's a lot of like ingredients that are genetically modified. And so a lot of people are unaware of the genetically modified situation. They just, you know, they just assume that certain things are okay to eat. And like they even have like the pyramid, the food pyramid is not really what we should follow when it comes to our diet. It's almost the complete opposite of what we really need to, you know, to consume to be healthy. So, say if you have family, and I've dealt with it, we've dealt with this a lot, where you know we may share a truth with family members, and they're just like, "Oh no, I'm gonna eat this way, whatever," and then you're kind of like you feel that need to speak out about it, but at the same time, you know, just simply just speaking out about it will cause a discourse. What do we do in those instances?
Very good question. And it all goes back to your relationship and the level of trust you share with the person and the readiness of the person. So even though there is so much that we may know in terms of our wisdom and our knowledge, but if the person is not ready, it is only going to create indigestion in the other person. So one has to know, you know, how much to give and how ready they are to receive it. And so absolutely, Ashley, we do want to share, and especially with our loved ones, we do want them to have a better life, both in terms of their body, mind, and consciousness, right? But at the same time, we have to, sometimes we just have to test waters. And a huge part of it that I have found is patience. That if we can simply be their friend and you know, kind of build a relationship of trust, then it's that much easier for them to receive from us. Because when they see that we're actually, you know, we're walking our talk and we're actually benefiting from our life, then they will actually turn towards us and then ask us even. So like even in the Bhagavad Gita, you see that Krishna is not forcing anything down Arjuna's throat, right? He's waiting. Arjuna is like, you know, it's like a teacher finds a teachable moment, right? So it's like sometimes you have to wait for that teachable moment. And only when that moment comes, then, you know, what you have to say will have a deeper effect. Like so many, I mean, there's so many examples like that, right? And that's just how we are in entities. So there's,
Right.
I hope that helps. I mean, there's no direct formula. It's just that one has to be mindful of, are they ready for this? And does the relationship have sufficient trust and strength for me to be able to convey to this to them? And is this a teachable moment?
Yeah, yeah, that definitely explains it a whole lot. Just testing the waters, you know, just that definitely explains it for me. Yeah, thank you.
Sweta, any thoughts from you?
I just can't think of
The
anything
voice
right now.
is not clear.
Can't think so.
Okay. All right. All right. So you want to discuss the questions?
Yeah, we have a few questions left. So
Can I say something?
Yes,
Amrita, go
Amrita,
ahead.
of course.
Yeah. So I was thinking that, you know, even though Arjuna is in the mode of goodness, you know, he's still trying to justify you know, all his thought process, everything that he's, you know, all the valid points that he's making. But at this point of time, like, he's not really looking for advice. Like, he's talking to Krishna as if, you know, from a friend point of view, where, you know, he's like, you know, just giving him his, you know, I guess, you know, thought process as to why he feels the way he feels.
Nice. Actually, before you get into the question, can we just quickly talk about what we want to do on Wednesday, and then
Yeah,
I'll leave.
yeah.
So did you guys think of what we should do on Wednesday? We have a couple of options. One is we watch the movie. The second is that we can read different offerings, and then you can also share your appreciation.
So I have one option,
Okay,
that we read the appreciations on Wednesday, and then Friday we watch the movie.
that's also a good idea.
Friday could be a movie time.
And then Wednesday yeah, that's a good idea. So Wednesday we can read different offerings by different, it's beautiful, some of the offerings, and we can pick up the best offerings over the years.
And then we would encourage you guys to also read about Prabhupada, maybe his biography or during the week, and then that way you develop appreciation for what Yes, one.
There's some very beautiful memories of Prabhupada video. Oh my goodness.
On YouTube, if you go and type Prabhupada memories, so all his disciples, they're sharing beautiful memories of him.
All right, so we'll do that. Wednesday we'll read, and then Friday we'll watch the movie. Wonderful. I'm very excited. So I'll let you guys continue.
Okay.
And thank you so much. It's so nice to have.
Okay, so we'll just go over some of the remaining questions from chapter 1. This one we didn't go into the purport, but let's dig it out. Question number 13. Describe the nature, duty, and destination of a true Kshatriya. 31, 36, and 37. Can somebody do that quickly? And while we are doing that, we'll come back to it. We'll go to text for question 14. Why is Arjuna addressing Krishna as Madhava?
Was Madhava the one about husband of the goddess of fortune?
Yes.
Yeah, that you're supposed to bring good fortune. Why are you trying to make me miserable by forcing me to do this?
Yes, very nice. List the reasons. There's background noise coming from somebody. Let's see who that is. Okay. List the reasons Arjuna gives for not fighting. So this is like more like a broader question, like all the reasons that Arjuna gave for not fighting. Maybe one person can speak one reason. Let's just go around the room and see if you remember all the reasons Arjuna gave for not fighting. Because Krishna is going to address each one of them as he moves forward in the Bhagavad Gita. So it's good to know.
He was overwhelmed by compassion.
He was overwhelmed by compassion. That's how he starts out. Thank you. Next reason. But that's more like his condition of his heart. He does not give that as a reason for not fighting. That's why he's speaking in that way. But
he doesn't want to incur any sins by killing his relatives and his people, and including his teachers and grandfather and everybody.
Okay, so papam or sin is one reason that he gives.
And the woman, degradation of the womanhood will happen.
Degradation of the woman and basically general destruction of the society, right?
Yes.
Okay. What other reasons?
Who are we going to enjoy this?
Okay, let's let other people, everybody take a chance.
Sorry.
Okay, looks like we have to go back and read the whole chapter again.
Because the women will get polluted and the vulnerable people of society won't have anyone to look after them. That's one.
Right. Yeah, we just talked about that. So that's the concern about the society, family tradition, and preservation of the society.
He also says that he cannot, he won't be able to share the opulence of his victory. If he kills the kingsman, he won't be able to, forgive himself.
Yes. So that's actually the very first reason he gives. What's in it for me? Right? What's in it for me? Why should I? Why should I?
Happy by killing our own kinsmen.
There's a problem with your audio, Sweta. Can you speak up?
How could anyone be happy by killing his own kinsman?
Yes. So his own happiness is the first reason he gives. That I won't be happy if I did that. Right? And second reason he gives is papa. or sin will overcome me, right? And third reason is destruction of the family traditions, and as a result the whole society will be upside down. What else?
He also states that on the grounds of religion, it's better to forgive.
He doesn't really say that. Where does he say that?
I think Arjuna considered that rather than kill his own kinsmen of political reasons, it would be better to forgive them on grounds of religion and saintly behavior.
Okay. So that's, he's already made up his mind. That is just to deal with the consequences of not fighting. Yes.
Also because seeing the passion in those who were on the battlefield wanting to go against him, that brought about the compassion, seeing how much they wanted to go to war against him brought him immense grief. So that was one of the other reasons why, because he was unable, he was kind of like drawn back at their passion to want to war against him.
Yeah. Obviously, compassion is kind of broader reason for. So as Pratibha said, compassion is the underlying reason, although he doesn't specifically speak it. But he, as Amrita was saying in the last couple of verses, he said it's better for me to even killed rather than be fighting them. So in that sense, also he's compassionate. So you can take that compassion is kind of the overlying reason for his not fighting. Enjoyment is second reason. What's in it for me? The third reason is papam, or fear of sinful reactions. So he's really worried about that. Not only him, but all the Pandavas will suffer from that sinful reaction. So he doesn't want that either. The fourth one is destruction of family. So that's expressed in so many different ways. Destruction of family traditions, destruction of elderly people, pollution of women and children, and also the falling down of the ancestors. So all that is clubbed together under destruction of family and the tradition. So those are the four reasons, and he's going to give one more reason in the next chapter, which is indecision. You can see that out of indecision, he puts down his bow and arrow, and that indecision becomes so prominent that he'll finally surrender to Krishna out of that indecision. So these are the five main reasons that are given by our teachers, that the reasons for Arjuna's not fighting. Okay, so let's go back to, am I still sharing? So did somebody find out the nature, duty, and destination of a true Kshatriya? Question number 13. Okay, you just have to speak a little bit louder. For some reason, your audio.
Yes, is it? Am I audible now?
Yes.
A Kshatriya dies directly in front of the battlefield. He requires the kingdom for his subsistence because the Kshatriyas cannot engage themselves in any other occupation. A Kshatriya cannot be coward. He is not supposed to refuse to battle or gamble when he is so invited by some rival party.
Very nice. That's the nature of the Kshatriya. What is the duty of a Kshatriya?
A Kshatriya requires a kingdom for sustenance. So Arjuna has to get back his kingdom because he being a Kshatriya needs a kingdom to sustain him.
Right, that's kind of his need, but what is his real duty? What is the duty that defines Kshatriya?
He dies in the battlefield.
That's not
Is
his
that
duty. Dying is not his duty.
Protect the religion and the people.
Maybe protect the kingdom. Protect the
Yeah.
kingdom.
Protecting the kingdom. Yeah. Yeah, we go in
Duty,
that direction.
duty to kill the 6 types of aggressors.
The 6 types of aggressors, they are given so that they apply to everybody, not just the Kshatriyas. They apply to even a common person. The real duty of a Kshatriya, the word Kshatriya comes from 2 words. Shat, Shat means harm, and Triya or Traya means to free. So the real duty of a Kshatriya is to free his dependents or his subjects from all kinds of harm, to protect them from physical harm, from mental harm, and from also spiritual harm. So a real Kshatriya is responsible, just like a father is responsible for the well-being of the children. The real Kshatriya's duty is to protect his subjects, kingdom, everybody, not just the human beings, but every single living entity in their kingdom, humans, animals, plants, trees, insects, everybody is the subject or the praja of the Kshatriya. And his duty is to protect them and provide. Prabhupada writes in many purports that a Kshatriya is also meant to provide everybody an equal opportunity for gainful living based on their nature and their activities, propensities, and their talents, and also make sure that everybody is progressing in spiritual life depending on their own inclination. So somebody may be, there are so many different spiritual paths people may be pursuing. So Kshatriya is not imposing a particular path, but encouraging everybody on their path, on their spiritual journey as well. And that's the most important duty of a Kshatriya, to create an atmosphere in the society where everybody feels free and safe to practice the spirituality and makes progress in that. So that's the real duty of a Kshatriya. And destination, I think Shweta already said, a Kshatriya who lives by that code, when they die in the battle, or they go to heaven, or if a Kshatriya, you'll see that a lot of Kshatriya kings, they would retire at a certain age, and they'll go to the forest and they'll practice spiritual life without any distraction. And then they'll go back to the spiritual planet, or they will go back to heavenly planet, depending on what practice they chose. So that way we can understand the nature, duty, and destination. And that applies to all the 4 varnas: Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, and Sudra. But Prabhupada also writes that somebody who's practicing spirituality or Krishna consciousness, for them, they all go to the spiritual realm. Okay, so question number 16, what is the significance of the word Varna Shankara?
Producing children that are, that's not based on religious, this thing is sort of, children that are based on not the proper association between man and woman.
Yeah, Varna Shankara, typically in a Vedic society, children born out of wedlock and without any proper sanskaras. So before a child is conceived, it is recommended that the husband and wife, they undergo a purificatory samskara called Garbhadhana samskara, which allows a pious soul to be attracted to the womb. And that basically brings peace in the society and happiness in the society. And when children are born in a haphazard way, without proper meditation, without proper guidance, then such children may have tendencies which are disruptive to themselves and disruptive to the society. So it's all very scientific. The whole process of the soul entering the womb, what kind of soul will come to the womb, and what kind of activities that person will do as they grow up. It's very, very precise, and it's not a random act of regeneration. So when that knowledge is missing, as we can see in the today's day in society, when that knowledge is missing, then it's all random, and we can see how the society has become very turbulent because of that. Any comments or questions on that? Okay. What is the relationship between family elders, women folk, family traditions, and the maintenance of society? So that was kind of, we already went over that. All right. So what we will do is we'll end it here, but I'll create, if you guys are up to it, I'll create kind of a test or something for chapter 1. And it may contain questions from what we discussed, or it may contain some other questions as well. So that, it will be a take-home exam, so you guys can do it at your own pace, and just return the answer sheet back to me. I'll probably send it out maybe by Friday to everybody, and then you take maybe a week's time. Is that fair enough? A week?
Yeah, a week after that is Thanksgiving, so we'll have time.
But if people want to spend time with the family, then we can take one more week. So let's give it 2 weeks. 2 weeks that way, but then no more after that. And then the only reason we are doing that is that way you'll go back to the chapter, learn the subject matter more thoroughly, and then you'll have good grounded knowledge of the chapter 1. And it's not mandatory. Those of you who want to do it, you're welcome to do it, but we encourage everybody to do it, because only those who do it, then at the end the whole thing will offer you a certificate that you have completed the Bhagavad Gita in a thorough way. So it's your choice. So thank you all. We'll meet again on Wednesday, and we'll celebrate Prabhupada's disappearance day.
Okay.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you.